The shuttle doors opened with a soft hiss, and Maya stepped onto the Galactic Integration Academy for the first time. She carried one bag over her shoulder. She wore the standard gray uniform of a new cadet, and she stood at 5 feet and 2 inches tall, which made her the smallest person on the entire station. She had known this would happen. The briefing files back on Earth had warned her. Every species in the hegemony was bigger than humans. Some were much bigger, but reading about it and seeing it were two different things. An officer walked past her. He was 8 feet tall and made of something that looked like living crystal. Light moved through his body in slow waves of blue and purple. He did not look at Maya. He looked over her, as if she was a piece of furniture that someone had left in the corridor. Maya picked up her bag and followed the signs toward the registration area. The station was enormous. The corridors were built for beings much larger than her, and Maya felt like a child walking through a building made for adults. The ceilings were 30 feet high. The doors were wide enough for 3 humans to walk through side by side. Even the benches along the walls were too tall for her to sit on comfortably. She passed groups of other cadets on her way. There were huge reptilian creatures with 4 arms and scales the color of dried blood. There were bird-like beings with hollow bones and nervous eyes. There were species she did not recognize, some with too many legs, some with no legs at all, some that floated through the air on organs she could not name. All of them were bigger than her, every single one. At the registration desk, a bored-looking official processed her documents. He was a slug-like creature who moved slowly and spoke even slower. "Human," he said, reading her file. "First one we have had here." "Yes," Maya said. "Barracks Sigma 7, end of the East Corridor. You will find your bunk assignment inside." Maya thanked him and left. She noticed that he had not wished her luck. She noticed that several cadets nearby had stopped talking to stare at her. She noticed the way they looked at each other after she passed, and the way some of them laughed quietly. She noticed everything. She always did. Barracks Sigma 7 was the smallest barracks on the station, tucked away in a corner that felt almost forgotten. When Maya walked in, she found only 2 other beings inside. The first was unnamed. He was small for his species, with dull feathers and a wing arm that he held at an awkward angle, like it had been broken once and never healed quite right. He looked up when Maya entered, and his eyes went wide. "You are the human," he said, "the Earthborn." "Maya," she said, "nice to meet you." The second was unnamed. He was larger than the one at registration, but he moved even slower. His eye stalks turned toward Maya with an expression that might have been curiosity or might have been despair. "They put you here," said, "in the reject barracks with us." Maya looked around the room. It was small and plain. 3 bunks, 3 lockers, 1 window that looked out at the stars. It was not much, but it was enough. "Seems fine to me," she said. She chose the bunk nearest the window and began to unpack, watched her with fascination, watched her with something like pity. "You do not understand," said quietly. "This barracks is for the ones they do not expect to succeed, the small ones, the slow ones, the ones who do not fit." "I fit fine," Maya said. "Thee and the run this academy," added. "They decide who advances and who fails, and they have already decided about us." Maya finished unpacking. She had brought very little, a few changes of clothes, a small tablet with photos of her family, a worn paperback book that had belonged to her grandmother. "We will see," she said. The orientation ceremony was held in the main assembly hall, a vast chamber that could hold thousands. Maya stood in the back with and surrounded by cadets who towered over her like trees over a flower. Commandant X addressed them from a raised platform. He was tall and sharp, his crystal body pulsing with cold white light. His voice filled the hall without any need for amplification. "You are here because your worlds believe you are worthy," he said. "You are here to prove them right or prove them wrong. The hegemony does not need soldiers who are merely adequate. We need the exceptional, the strong, the capable. His eyes swept across the crowd. When they reached Maya, they stopped. "I see we have a human this year," he said. A ripple of whispers spread through the hall. Thousands of alien eyes turned to look at the tiny figure in gray standing at the back. Earth, X continued, is a small world. Its people are small. One wonders if they sent their candidate as a joke or if this is truly the best they have to offer. Laughter, not from everyone but from enough. The cadets laughed loudest, their rumbling voices filling the chamber. Even some of the instructors smiled. Maya said nothing. Her face showed nothing. She simply stood there, a small woman in a sea of giants, and watched. X moved on to other matters. The laughter faded, but Maya knew that the damage was done. Every being in that hall would remember this moment. They would remember the tiny Earthborn who was mocked on her first day. Good, she thought, let them remember. After the ceremony, she made her way to the quartermaster's office to collect her equipment. The quartermaster was an old with scars on two of his arms and a missing eye. "Human," he grunted, shoving a pile of gear toward her. "This is standard issue. If it does not fit, that is your problem." Meyer examined the equipment. The helmet was too big. The boots were too long. The weapon harness would need to be adjusted significantly. "One question," she said. The quartermaster looked annoyed. "What?" "The gravity on this station. What is it set to?" He frowned as if the question was strange. "Standard galactic, 0.4 Earth equivalent, same as every station in the hegemony." Maya nodded slowly. 0.4, she repeated. "Is there a problem?" "No," Maya said, "no problem at all." She gathered her equipment and left. The quartermaster watched her go, confused by the small smile that had appeared on her face. In the corridor outside, the giants of the galaxy walked past her without a second glance. They saw a tiny creature from a tiny world, someone to laugh at, someone to ignore. They did not see what Maya saw. They did not understand what 0.4 gravity meant for someone born on Earth. But they would learn. The first 2 weeks at the academy were difficult in ways Maya had expected, and in ways she had not. The equipment was the obvious problem. Every console, every control panel, every piece of training gear was built for beings twice her size. Maya had to jump to reach buttons that other cadets pressed without thinking. She had to climb onto chairs to see over desks. She had to use both hands to lift tools that others held with one finger. The cadets found this entertaining. Their leader was a massive creature named. He stood nearly 9 feet tall, with 4 arms as thick as tree trunks and scales that gleamed like polished armor. His eyes were yellow and cold, and his mouth was full of teeth that he showed often when he smiled. He smiled a lot when Maya was around. "Look at the little Earthborn," he would say to his friends. "Watch her jump like a trained animal." They recorded her with their devices. They shared the recordings across the station network. Maya climbing a ladder to reach a standard doorway. Maya struggling to lift a training weight meant for children. Maya standing on a crate to see the tactical display during a simulation. "Most popular entertainment on the station," told her one day, his voice loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "The tiny human show, very funny." Maya did not respond. She finished her task and moved on. But she noticed that watched her more closely after that. He had expected anger or tears or fear. Her silence confused him, and confusion, Maya knew, often turned to frustration. The tactical simulations were different. In those, Maya excelled. The instructors set up scenarios on holographic displays, enemy movements, resource allocation, battle planning. The cadets were tested on how quickly they could analyze information and make decisions. Maya finished first almost every time. Her scores confused the instructors. They ran additional tests. They checked for errors in the system. They found nothing wrong. The tiny human simply thought faster than anyone expected. "Interesting," said Senior Instructor Ox, who taught strategic theory. "The Earthborn has some use after all. A pity that intelligence alone does not win wars." Physical assessments were another matter. Maya's were postponed indefinitely. "We do not have appropriate baseline metrics for humans," the medical officer explained. "Your species has never been tested. We do not know what standards to apply. Until Command provides guidelines, your physical evaluations will be delayed." Maya understood what this meant. They did not want to test her. They assumed she would fail so badly that it would be embarrassing for everyone involved. Better to simply pretend the tests did not apply. She did not argue. She simply nodded and left. The mess hall incident happened on day 12. Maya was sitting alone at a small table, eating a ration bar that tasted like cardboard mixed with chalk. Usually ate with her, but he was in the medical bay that day. Was too slow to arrive before the meal period ended. Appeared beside her table. His shadow fell over her like a blanket. "Earthborn," he said, "I have been thinking about you." Maya continued eating. "That must have been difficult," she said. His friends laughed but did not. His yellow eyes narrowed. "On my world," he said slowly, "creatures your size are pets. We keep them in cages. We feed them scraps. Sometimes, when they misbehave, we eat them instead." He leaned down, bringing his massive head close to hers. His breath smelled like rotting meat. "You should remember that, little pet. You should remember your place." Maya took another bite of her ration bar. She chewed. She swallowed. Then she looked up with an expression of polite interest. "Thank you for sharing," she said. "Very educational." Stared at her for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked away, his friends following. But Maya saw the way his hands clenched into fists. She saw the anger in his posture. She had made an enemy. She had made one on purpose. 3 days later, hurt. It happened in the corridor outside the barracks. Was walking back from the medical bay, his wing arm still weak from an old injury. Was coming the other way with 2 of his friends. They did not move aside, tried to squeeze past, shoved him. The push was not hard by standards, but was with hollow bones and a body built for flying, not fighting. He hit the wall with a crack that echoed down the corridor. His wing arm broke in 2 places. "Watch where you are going," Bird said, stepping over his crumpled body. "Some of us have places to be." Maya found 20 minutes later, still lying on the floor. She helped him to the medical bay and stayed with him while the doctors worked. "He will heal," the doctor said. 1 month, perhaps 2, but the wing will never be quite right again. Too much damage too many times. Received a minor reprimand, a note in his file, nothing more. "They are valued allies of the hegemony," the disciplinary officer explained when Maya asked. "We cannot afford to antagonize them over a simple accident." Maya visited every day after that. She brought him food from the mess hall. She helped him with his studies. She sat with him when he could not sleep. One night, asked her the question she had been waiting for. "Why do you not fight back?" His voice was tired and sad. "They mock you, they humiliate you, and you just take it. Why?" Maya looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, millions of miles away, was Earth, her home, a world that had taught her many things. "Where I come from," she said slowly, "we learned patience. A long time ago, before we had tools or weapons, we survived by being patient. We were not the fastest animals. We were not the strongest, but we could wait. We could watch. We could learn." She turned back to, "The predators that survive are not always the biggest. They are the ones who know when to wait and when to strike." Looked at her with something new in his eyes. Not pity anymore, something closer to hope. "You are waiting," he said. Maya smiled. "I am learning." The next day, she submitted a request to the station administrator. She wanted access to the maintenance level. She said she was interested in understanding the station's infrastructure. She said it would help her with her technical studies. The request was approved within an hour. Maya was small and harmless and posed no threat to anyone. What damage could she possibly do? She collected her access pass and headed for the maintenance level, her mind already working through calculations that no one else on the station would understand. The giants had laughed at her, they had mocked her, they had dismissed her. They had made a mistake. The maintenance level was a maze of pipes, cables, and machinery that stretched for miles beneath the main station. It was dark and cramped and filled with the constant hum of systems that kept thousands of beings alive in the cold emptiness of space. Maya loved it. She spent hours down there, walking through corridors that were almost small enough to feel normal. She touched the walls, tested the surfaces, measured distances with her steps. She found the gravity calibration controls on her second visit, a massive console covered in warning signs and security locks. She did not touch it. She did not need to. She just needed to understand. 0.4 Earth gravity, the standard for the entire hegemony. Maya had grown up on Earth, where gravity pulled at her with a force that these aliens could not imagine. She had run and jumped and climbed under that weight her entire life. Her bones had grown dense to support her body against that constant pull. Her muscles had developed to move her through air that felt like water compared to this. Here at 0.4 G, she was operating at less than half her normal physical baseline. Every movement was light. Every step was easy. She could jump higher, move faster, lift more than she ever could on Earth. And no one knew. The Academy had never tested a human. They had no baseline metrics. They looked at her size and assumed she was weak, because every other small species they had encountered was weak. They did not understand that size and strength were not the same thing. Maya began her research in the station archives. She pulled up files on every species at the Academy. She read about their evolution, their physical capabilities. She took notes and made calculations and slowly built a picture that made her smile. They had evolved on a moon with gravity at 0.3 Earth standard. Their crystalline bodies were beautiful but brittle. They relied on technology and intelligence, not physical strength. They were bigger and stronger than most species, but they had gravity at 0.6 Earth standard, and they had evolved as ambush predators, built for short bursts of power, not sustained effort. They came from a world with gravity at 0.2. Their hollow bones let them fly in thin air, but a strong wind could break them. On and on through the list. Dozens of species, dozens of worlds, and not a single one had evolved under gravity higher than 0.7 Earth standard. Earth was a monster. Maya had always known this in an abstract way. Earth was classified as in hegemony records, but the classification was treated as a joke. A tiny planet with tiny people. How dangerous could it be? The answer was very dangerous. Earth had crushing gravity, extreme temperatures, predators with claws and teeth, diseases that evolved faster than medicine could fight them, natural disasters that wiped out entire regions, parasites that ate their hosts from the inside. And humans had survived all of it. More than survived, they had thrived. They had conquered their world, and then, because they were bored, they had reached for the stars. Maya closed the archive files and began to train. She found a cargo bay on the lower levels that was rarely used. At night, when the station was quiet, she went there and pushed her body in ways she had never pushed it before. Push-ups first, hundreds of them until her arms burned and shook, then squats, then running laps around the bay until her lungs screamed for air, then lifting. The cargo containers were meant to be moved by anti-gravity dollies. They weighed hundreds of kilograms and were covered in warning labels about proper handling procedures. Maya lifted them with her hands. The first one was hard. The second was easier. By the end of the week, she was stacking them on top of each other and pressing the entire pile over her head. She was not getting stronger. She was simply discovering how strong she had always been. Found her on the 9th night. They had been looking for her for hours. He moved slowly through the maintenance levels, his eye stalks swiveling in the darkness, until he finally tracked her to the cargo bay. He arrived just in time to see Maya lift a 400-kilogram supply crate over her head like it weighed nothing at all. His eye stalks went rigid. His body froze. For a long moment he simply stared. "What," he said slowly, "are you?" Maya set the crate down gently. It landed with a soft thump that seemed too quiet for something so heavy. "I am from Earth," she said. "That does not explain," gestured with one slimy appendage at the crate. "That." Maya sat down on a smaller container and looked at her friend. She had grown fond of over the past weeks. He was slow and pessimistic and convinced that failure was inevitable, but he was also kind in his own way. He had shared his food with her when she could not stomach the ration bars. He had warned her about which instructors to avoid. He had never laughed at her, not once. He deserved the truth. "Earth has gravity 2.5 times stronger than this station," Maya said. "My bones grew dense to handle that weight. My muscles developed to move under that pressure. Every day of my life, I trained without knowing I was training." Stalk slowly turned toward the crate, then back to Maya. "But you are so small," he said. "Size is not strength," Maya replied. "Not on Earth. Some of our most dangerous predators were small. Speed and power do not care about size." She stood up and walked to the cargo crate. She placed one hand on its surface. "Humans are persistence predators," she said. "Do you know what that means?" Shook his head. "It means we hunted by chasing. Other animals were faster than us over short distances, but we could run for hours, for days. We followed our prey until it collapsed from exhaustion, until it could not run anymore, until it simply gave up and let us catch it." She looked at with eyes that were suddenly hard. "We are not the biggest or the fastest or the strongest, but we never stop, we never give up. We keep going until we win or until we die. That is what it means to be human." Was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. There was no despair in it anymore. "Announced a challenge today," he said. "A test of strength for Barracks Sigma 7. The losers will serve as attendants to the winners for 1 month." Maya nodded slowly. "I heard. He is going to humiliate us. He is going to prove that we are weak and worthless and do not belong here." "That is what he thinks will happen," Maya agreed. Looked at her at the crate, at her hands small and soft and human. "What do you think will happen?" he asked. Maya smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator who had been waiting for exactly the right moment. "I think is about to learn something about Earth," she said. "Something he will never forget." The central gymnasium was packed with cadets from every species on the station. They filled the observation platforms, crowded against the railings, and spilled into the corridors outside. Word had spread fast. Everyone wanted to see the show. Had made sure of that. He stood in the center of the gymnasium floor, surrounded by his friends. His scales gleamed under the bright lights. His 4 arms were crossed over his massive chest. He looked like a king waiting to pass judgment on lesser beings. The cadets of Barracks Sigma 7 stood on the opposite side. Was there, his broken wing arm still in a support brace. Was there, moving as slowly as always but with something new in his posture. And Maya was there, small and quiet and almost invisible among the giants. "Welcome everyone," announced, his voice booming through the gymnasium. "Today we will see the truth. Today we will prove what we all already know. Some species are meant to lead, others are meant to serve." He gestured toward Maya and her bunkmates. "The weaklings of Sigma 7 have accepted my challenge. When they lose, they will spend 1 month as our attendants, cleaning our quarters, carrying our equipment, learning their proper place. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Maya noticed that not everyone laughed. Some of the smaller species watched in silence. Some of the instructors frowned, but no one spoke up. No one objected. That was how things worked here. The strong ruled, the weak obeyed. Maya was about to change that. The first test was simple lifting. A series of weights, each heavier than the last, placed on a platform. Each contestant would lift as much as they could. Went first, with his broken wing arm he could barely lift the weight. The crowd laughed, smiled. Went second. He was stronger than he looked, but his slow movements made the test difficult. He managed 3 weights before he had to stop. More laughter. Maya stepped up to the platform. The weights looked enormous next to her small frame. The one was almost as tall as her waist. The crowd grew quiet, waiting for the comedy to begin. Maya lifted the first weight easily, then the second, then the third, fourth, fifth. She moved through the weights faster than anyone expected, her small hands gripping the metal, her arms steady and sure. She stopped at weight 7. The same weight would lift later. She could have gone higher, but she chose not to, not yet. Confused murmurs spread through the crowd. That was not supposed to happen. The tiny human was supposed to fail. Frowned but said nothing. He lifted weight 7 himself, then weight 8, then stopped at weight 9 with a triumphant roar. The crowd cheered for him. The Earthborn is stronger than she looks, admitted, but still not strong enough. Let us continue. The second test was endurance, running laps around the gymnasium until you could not run anymore. This was where Maya had planned to make her point, but she held back. She ran steadily, matching pace with the middle of the group, then dropping out after 30 minutes. Respectable but not remarkable. Lasted 45 minutes. He was breathing hard at the end, his scales dark with sweat, but he had won. Again the crowd cheered. Maya watched and waited. The final test was coming. Grip strength. A graduated metal cylinder, designed to measure crushing force. Each contestant would squeeze as hard as they could, and the cylinder would record the result on a scale from 1 to 10. Scored a 2, scored a 3. The went next, each one scoring between 5 and 7. Approached the cylinder with ceremony. He wrapped all 4 of his hands around it, took a deep breath and squeezed. The cylinder crumpled. The gauge climbed to 7, then 8, then stopped at 8.5. Released the cylinder and held up his arms in victory. 8.5, he announced. A new Academy record. Let us see the little Earthborn match that. Maya walked to the platform. The cylinder looked comically large in her hands. She had to stretch her fingers to wrap around its surface. The crowd was quiet, even was quiet. Everyone was watching. Maya squeezed. The gauge began to climb. 4, 5, 6, 7. The numbers kept rising faster than they had for anyone else. 8, 8.5, 9. The gauge hit 10 and stopped, but Maya did not stop. The cylinder was not designed to measure beyond 10. It was not designed for forces that high. The metal began to buckle. The gauge cracked. The entire device crumpled inward, collapsing under pressure that the engineers had never imagined. Maya opened her hands. The cylinder fell to the platform, crushed into a twisted lump of useless metal. Silent, complete and absolute silence. Then started to speak. The equipment must be faulty. There is no way that a tiny... Maya turned away from him. She walked across the gymnasium floor toward a metal bench bolted to the wall. It was solid titanium alloy, designed to support soldiers in full armor. It was welded to reinforced brackets. It was meant to be permanent and unmovable. Maya gripped both ends of the bench, and she began to bend it. The metal screamed. It was a sound that no one in the gymnasium had ever heard before, the sound of something that was not supposed to bend being forced to bend anyway. The titanium twisted and groaned and slowly, impossibly, curved upward in Maya's hands. She did not hurry. She did not strain. She bent the metal slowly and deliberately, as if she wanted everyone to see exactly what was happening, as if she wanted them to understand. When the bench was curved into a U-shape, Maya released it. She turned to face the crowd. Thousands of aliens stared at her in absolute shock. Species she had never learned the names of, all of them frozen, all of them silent. On Earth, Maya said, her voice calm and clear, I was considered average. She let that sink in for a moment. Average strength, average speed, average endurance, nothing special, just a normal human woman from a normal human city. She looked at, the massive had gone pale under his scales. His 4 arms hung limp at his sides. Your gravity here is 0.4 Earth standard, Maya continued. My bones are built for 2.5 times that force. My muscles developed under weight that would crush most of you. Every day of my life was training that you cannot imagine. She took a step toward, then another. The giant did not move. He seemed unable to move. You called me a pet, Maya said. You said creatures my size were kept in cages on your world. You broke my friend's arm because he was in your way. She stopped directly in front of him. She had to crane her neck to look up at his face. I am not a pet, she said quietly. I am a human, and where I come from, we are the apex predators. We hunted everything else on our planet to extinction or submission. We conquered our world, and then we came for the stars. She smiled, and there was nothing friendly in it. You should have read our file more carefully. A voice cut through the silence. Commandant X, his crystalline body pulsing with rapid flashes of light. Lieutenant, he said, report to my office immediately. Maya nodded once. She turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the silent gymnasium. As she passed and she saw their faces, was crying, but he was smiling too. Eye stalks were standing than she had ever seen them. Behind her the crowd began to whisper, then to talk, then to shout. The tiny Earthborn had just changed everything. The commandant's office was at the top of the station, a circular room with windows that looked out at the endless stars. X stood behind his desk, his crystalline body flickering with colors that Maya could not read. She did not know if he was angry or fascinated or both. Sit, he said, gesturing to a chair. Maya sat. The chair was too big for her, like everything else on the station. Her feet did not quite reach the floor. X studied her for a long moment. Then he turned to his console and pulled up a file. Earth, he said. Classification, gravity 1.0 standard. Temperature range extreme, native predators numerous. Atmospheric composition, oxygen-nitrogen, high UV exposure. He looked at Maya. This file was submitted when humanity first made contact with the hegemony. It was reviewed by our assessment teams and filed away. Do you know what conclusion they reached? No, sir. They concluded that it was exaggerated. Propaganda designed to make a small, weak species seem more impressive than they were. They assumed that no intelligent species could evolve under such conditions. They assumed it was a lie. He turned the console so Maya could see the screen. Her own physical readouts from the gymnasium were displayed. Strength measurements that broke the existing scales. Bone density readings that the computer had flagged as errors. It was not a lie, X said. No, sir, it was not. The commandant was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer, almost impressed. Your species survived that world. Survived it, Maya said. Thrived in it. Conquered it. We became the dominant species on a planet that was trying to kill us every single day. We built cities and nations and civilizations, all while fighting gravity and disease and predators and each other. She met his eyes directly. And then we got bored, so we went to space. X made a sound that might have been a laugh. The colors in his crystal body shifted to something warmer. The hegemony has made an error, he said. A significant one. We assessed your species based on physical size. We saw small bodies and assumed weak bodies. We never conducted proper physical evaluations. We never considered that a world with stronger gravity would produce stronger beings. He sat down across from her. I have been commanding this academy for 40 years. I have trained cadets from over 200 species. I have never seen anyone do what you did in that gymnasium. Maya said nothing. She waited. You could have demonstrated your strength at any time, X continued. On your first day, during orientation, when they mocked you, but you waited, you let them underestimate you. Why? Maya thought about the question. She thought about Earth, about her grandmother, about all the lessons she had learned growing up human. Because strength alone is not enough, she said finally. I could have crushed on my first day, but what would that have proved? That I was dangerous, that I should be feared. The hegemony already fears what it does not understand. I did not want to be feared. Then what did you want? To be respected. There is a difference. She leaned forward in her chair. I waited until hurt someone who could not fight back. I waited until he challenged me publicly, in front of witnesses. I waited until the moment when my strength would mean something more than just power, when it would mean justice. X was quiet for a long time. The colors in his body shifted through shades of blue and purple that Maya had never seen before. You think like a commander, he said at last. Not a soldier, a commander. On Earth, we say that the best victory is the one where you do not have to fight at all. The commandant nodded slowly. Then he pulled up another file on his console. Lieutenant, is there anything you want? Anything you came here to ask for? Maya did not hesitate. 2 things, she said. First, I want injury properly treated. The doctor said his wing arm would never heal correctly. That is not acceptable. He deserves real medical care, not whatever is cheapest. X made a note. Done. And the second thing. He broke's arm deliberately. He received a minor reprimand because they are valued allies and no one wanted to cause problems. That is also not acceptable. The commandant studied her face. You want him punished. I want him to face real consequences. I do not care if it is punishment or transfer or public censure. I want the next person who thinks about hurting someone weaker than them to remember what happened too. I want them to hesitate. X was silent, then he nodded. Will be demoted and transferred to a border station. His conduct record will reflect the truth of what happened. Is that sufficient? Yes, sir, thank you. The commandant stood and walked to the window. He looked out at the stars for a long moment. I am going to recommend that Earth be reclassified, he said. Status confirmed. Human candidates will undergo revised assessment protocols from now on. We will not make the same mistake twice. He turned back to Maya. You have changed things today, Lieutenant. The ripples from this will spread across the entire hegemony. Species that were overlooked will demand reassessment. Assumptions that have stood for centuries will be questioned. Maya stood up from her chair. Good, she said simply. The announcement came the next day in the main assembly hall. Commandant X stood on the same platform where he had mocked Maya on her first day, but his words were different now. Earth is to be reclassified as a confirmed, he announced. Human physical capabilities have been severely underestimated. New assessment protocols will be developed. Human candidates will be evaluated appropriately from this point forward. He paused and looked directly at where was standing. Additionally, cadet of the delegation has been demoted and transferred for conduct unbecoming of a hegemony officer. Let this serve as a reminder that strength is not an excuse for cruelty. Did not meet anyone's eyes as he was escorted from the hall. His friends did not go with him. They stood alone, suddenly unsure of their place in a world that had shifted beneath their feet. After the assembly, Maya walked back to Barracks Sigma 7. She did not walk alone. Cadets of every species stepped aside as she passed. Not in fear, she noticed. Not in anger. They stepped aside the way you step aside for someone you respect, someone who has earned their place. Caught up with her halfway there. His wing arm was in a new brace, designed for proper healing instead of just basic function. He was smiling so wide that Maya thought his face might break. "They will tell stories about this," he said. "About you, about what you did." Maya shrugged. "They can tell whatever they want. I am just here to do my job." Joined them at the barracks door. He moved just as slowly as always, but he held himself differently now. Taller, prouder. "You changed things," he said. "For all of us. For every species that was ever told they were too small or too slow or too weak." Maya opened the door to the barracks, the small room with its 3 bunks and 1 window, her home for now. "I did not change anything," she said. "I just reminded them of something they forgot. Size is not strength. Speed is not power. The predators that survive are the ones who know when to wait and when to strike." She looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of miles away, was Earth. A tiny world full of tiny people who had conquered everything their planet threw at them and then reached for the universe. "Humans are not special because we are big or fast or strong," Maya said quietly. "We are special because we never give up. We keep going. We keep fighting. We keep pushing forward until we win or until we die." She turned back to her friends. And today the hegemony learned that. They will not forget. Outside, the giants of the galaxy went about their business. They trained and studied and prepared for careers in a hegemony that had stood for thousands of years. But something had changed. Something fundamental. A species of small, soft, stubborn creatures from a nightmare world had served notice. They had arrived. They were here to stay. And they were far, far from fragile.